The first type of conjuncts are the conjuncts of enumeration. We may list here different things like reasons, differences, similarities, problems, and so on. Here is the list of conjuncts which are used for enumeration. Here we have different sets. We have the first set, which consists of first, second, third, fourth, fifth, etc. So for each conjunct, here there's a sentence or an idea. The second set is first, secondly, thirdly, or firstly, secondly, thirdly. The third set, we can use 1, 2, 3 instead of first, second, third, and of course they should be separated from the sentence with a comma. The fourth set, we have two conjuncts which go together in the first place and in the second place. The fifth set, we have for one thing, full stop, for another, or for another thing. Just here to tell you, when something is used between brackets, this means that it is optional. We can drop it, we can have it, or we can drop it. So we can say and for another, or we simply say for another or for another thing. In this set, we have a special meaning. Here we express reasons. For instance, you say, I don't want to attend tomorrow, full stop. For one thing, I am tired, full stop. For another thing, I have a lot of tasks to finish. So here, these two conjuncts are special when we talk about reasons, two reasons especially. The next set, here we have to begin with, to start with, first and foremost. These conjuncts are very special because they are used to start a list. So they cannot be used together in the same text. When you want to talk about the first idea, you say to begin with, comma, then your idea, full stop, and then you will use a conjunct from the next set, which is number 7. So here, the then, next are used to continue a list. And the last set, number 8, these conjuncts are used to end the list. So these come before the last idea. Right, we can have finally, last, lastly, last but not least. Here are some examples of enumeration. Example 1. You see this is a passage which consists of some sentences. At the beginning of each sentence, there is a conjunct of enumeration. First, they discussed the problem. Second, they made some decisions. Third, they ordered everyone to respect these decisions. Well, I can say also, firstly, they discussed the problem. Secondly, they made some decisions. Thirdly, they ordered everyone to respect these decisions. Or 1, they discussed the problem. 2, they made some decisions. 3, they ordered everyone to respect these decisions. Another example. Firstly, we need to set out what we want. Then, here to continue the list, we can make the calls. Finally, to end the list, we can list the responses. A next example, in the first place, we'll gather some data. So you see how in the first place is used. It is used as a conjunct between sentences. Now, if we have a sentence, for instance, where we say he is sitting in the first place, this is not a conjunct. Well, so the conjunct in the first place is separated from its sentence with a comma, and it's not part of the sentence. In the first place, we'll gather some data, then we'll do some number crunching, Next, we'll have to write the report. You see that we are continuing the list with then and next. Finally, it will be quite satisfying. Right. This is a writing exercise about the conjuncts of enumeration. Write a short passage where you use the conjuncts of enumeration. Here, try to use as many conjuncts as possible and train yourself to produce some acceptable passages. In this part of the video, I have gathered some examples which were written by first-year students. Of course, some of them contain some mistakes, so let's try to evaluate them and see whether these students are writing well or they have problems in writing. So we try to correct the examples together. Firstly, you have to download the file. Secondly, you have to open it using Word. Thirdly, you have to write your answer. Finally, you have to send it to the teacher. This is a very good example because firstly, the sentences are complete, the conjuncts are used at the beginning, punctuation, the use of commas is respected, and there are no other problems in the sentences themselves. The next example, there are 3 rules in my class. 1. You cannot use your phone during the session. You can make calls with my permission. 2. If you come 15 minutes after class starts, you will not be allowed in. Well, this is also another good example, but we expect the student to talk about 3 rules because at the beginning the student said that there are 3 rules in my class, right? Notice how the words 1, 2 are used. They are used here as conjuncts. They link the sentences and they are not part of their respective sentences. Another remark that we see in this passage is that the student tried to vary between simple sentences, compound sentences, and complex sentences. And this is a good example that conjuncts are not only limited to simple sentences. Well, the next one. First and foremost, he stormed a house. Then he robbed $5,000. Last but not least, he committed a murder. Here you see the enumeration listing what this person did. When I say first and foremost, I mean that the first is the most important one. And when I say last but not least, I mean that this is the last idea, but it is not less important than the others. The next one, if you want to be a good student, firstly you must ask questions, then revise your lessons, finally do your exercise. Here the student tried successfully to use the conjuncts, but there is a problem in the first sentence. If you want to be a good student, well, here this part is a fragment. The student should write a full sentence here. For instance, he can complete this part. He can say, if you want to be a good student, you have to do many things. So you add a main clause. Then you have a full stop and you start giving the details. Firstly, you must ask questions, then revise your lessons. Finally, do your exercise or exercises. Well, the second example by another student, to be able to speak English fluently, firstly you have to memorize new words. This student has the same problem of the previous student. It is in the first sentence. The first sentence is not a sentence, it is a fragment. Well, in order to solve this problem, either you complete it or you link it to the next sentence. Well, we can say to be able to speak English fluently, comma, firstly you have to, and then we continue with a small letter, or we complete the first one. We say to be able to speak English fluently, you can use many techniques. Full stop. Firstly, you have to memorize new words. Then you should learn grammar rules to link words. Finally, try to pronounce sentences correctly. Here there's a spelling mistake in correctly. Well, when you write any passage or anything, you have to make sure that it is exact. You check words, word spelling, etc. The last example, to protect yourself from coronavirus, in the first place, you should stay at home. Here again, the students have this problem of writing the first sentence of their passages. They do not write a sentence, they write just a fragment. And they have two possibilities to solve it. Either to complete it with a clause, to add a clause, or to link it to the next sentence with a comma. And in that case, the conjunct will interrupt the sentence in between, the middle. Right. So to protect yourself from coronavirus, you have to follow certain measures. First stop. In the first place, you should stay at home. Then, when leaving the house, a muzzle must be placed. Next, capital letter, wear gloves in public places. Finally, we should always sterilize our hands. Well, okay, the use of conjuncts itself is correct. Just the student should keep saying you from beginning to end, or we from beginning to end. Keep the same person, right? These are good examples which show how the conjuncts of enumeration are placed in passages when we list ideas.